Lesson 2. Employment and Labor Reforms. Objectives. Complete codification of central labor laws into 4 codes by 2019. Increase female labor force participation to at least 30% by 2022-23. Disseminate publicly available data, collected through rigorous household and enterprise surveys and innovative use of administrative data on a quarterly basis by 2022-23. Encourage increased formalization of the labor force by reforming labor laws, easing of industrial relations and ensuring of fair wages, working conditions and social security through significant productivity improvements in the economy. Current situation. To capitalize on its demographic dividend, India must create well-paying, high-productivity jobs. Of India's total workforce of about 52 crore, agriculture employed nearly 49% while contributing only 15% of the GWA. Comprehensive modernization of agriculture and allied sectors are needed urgently. In contrast, only about 29% of China's workforce was employed in agriculture, figure 2.1. Industry and services accounted for 13.7 and 37.5% of employment while making up for 23% and 62% of GWA, respectively. A significant number of workers currently employed in agriculture will move out in search of jobs in other areas. This will be in addition to the new entrants to the labor force as a result of population growth. By some estimates, the Indian economy will need to generate nearly 70 lakh jobs annually to absorb the net addition to the workforce. Taking into account the shift of labor force from low productivity employment, 80 to 90 lakhs new jobs will be needed in the coming years. Micro and small-sized firms as well as informal sector firms dominate the employment landscape in India. As per the National Sample Survey, NSS, 73rd round, for the period 2015-16, there were 6.34 crore unincorporated non-agricultural micro, small and medium enterprises, MSMEs, in the country engaged in different economic activities providing employment to 11.10 crore workers. A large majority of these firms are in the unorganized sector. By some estimates, India's informal sector employs approximately 85% of all workers. India also exhibits a low and declining female labor force participation rate. The female labor force participation rate in India was 23.7% in 2011-12 compared to 61% in China, 56% in the United States. Recognizing the high cost of compliance with existing labor regulations and the complexity generated by various labor laws at the central and state levels, the central government has recently introduced policies to make compliance easier and more effective. They are also simplifying and rationalizing the large and often overlapping number of labor laws. These measures include moving licensing and compliance processes online, simplifying procedures and permitting self-certification in larger number of areas. One of the government's key initiatives is to rationalize 38 central labor laws into 4 codes, namely wages, safety and working conditions, industrial relations, and social security and welfare. Of the 4 codes, the one on wages has been introduced in the Lok Sabha and is under examination. The other 3 codes are at the pre-legislative consultation stage and should be completed urgently. The government has put in place several schemes to help generate employment. These include the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, MGNREGS, Mudra Yojana, Prime Minister's Employment Generation Program and Pradhan Mantri Rojgar Protsahan Yojana. Additional initiatives aid job creation through providing skill development, easing access to credit and addressing sector-specific constraints. The government also made the EPFO premium portable so that workers can change jobs without fear of losing their provident fund benefits. The government has recently made publicly available the data on employment collected by the Employment Provident Fund Organization (EPFO), Employees State Insurance Corporation (ESIC), and National Pension Scheme (NPS). With MOSPI collecting employment data through its enterprises and household surveys, particularly the periodic labor force survey, and the focus on improving payroll data, the effort is to vastly improve availability of reliable employment data and release it on a regular basis. Constraints. Productivity across all sectors. A large share of India's workforce is employed in low productivity activities with low levels of remuneration. This is especially true of the informal sector where wages can be 1/20th of those in firms producing the same goods or services but in the formal sector. Protection and social security. A large number of workers that are engaged in the unorganized sector are not covered by labor regulations and social security. This dualistic nature of the labor market in India may be a result of the complex and large number of labor laws that make compliance very costly. In 2016, there were 44 labor laws under the statute of the central government. More than 100 laws fall under the jurisdiction of state governments. The multiplicity and complexity of laws makes compliance and enforcement difficult. Skills. According to the India Skill Report 2018, only 47% of those coming out of higher educational institutions are employable. Employment data. We currently lack timely and periodic estimates of the workforce. This lack of data prevents us from rigorously monitoring the employment situation and assessing the impact of various interventions to create jobs. Way forward. 1. Enhance skills and apprenticeships. The Labor Market Information System (LMIS) is important for identifying skill shortages, training needs, and employment created. The LMIS should be made functional urgently. Ensure the wider use of apprenticeship programs by all enterprises. This may require an enhancement of the stipend amount paid by the government for sharing the costs of apprenticeships with employers. 2. Labor law reforms. Complete the codification of labor laws at the earliest. Simplify and modify labor laws applicable to the formal sector to introduce an optimum combination of flexibility and security. Make the compliance of working conditions regulations more effective and transparent. The national policy for domestic workers needs to be brought in at the earliest to recognize their rights and promote better working conditions. 3. Enhance female labor force participation. Ensure the implementation of an employer's adherence to the recently passed Maternity Benefit Amendment Act 2017 and the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act. It is also important to ensure implementation of these legislations in the informal sector. Further details may be found in the chapter on gender. Ensure that skills training programs and apprenticeships include women. 4. Improve data collection on employment. Ensure that data collection for the Periodic Labor Force Survey (PFLS) of households initiated in April 2017 is completed as per schedule and data disseminated by 2019. Conduct an annual enterprise survey using the Goods and Service Tax Network (GSTN) as the sample frame. Increase the use of administrative data viz. EPFO, ESIC and the NPS to track regularly the state of employment while adjusting for the formalization of the workforce. 5. Ease industrial relations to encourage formalization. Increase severance pay in line with global best practices. Overhaul the labor dispute resolution system to resolve disputes quickly, efficiently, fairly, and at low cost. Strengthen labor courts, tribunals for timely dispute resolution and set a time frame for different disputes. 6. Wages. Make compliance with the National Floor Level Minimum Wage mandatory. Expand the Minimum Wages Act 1948 to cover all jobs. Enforce the payment of wages through check or Aadhaar-enabled payments for all. 7. Working conditions and social security. Enact a comprehensive occupational health and safety legislation based on risk assessment, employer-worker cooperation, and effective educational, remedial and sanctioning. Workers' housing on site will help to improve global competitiveness of Indian industry along with enhancing workers' welfare. Enhance occupational safety and health (OSH) in the informal sector through capacity building and targeted programs. Ensure compulsory registration of all establishments to ensure better monitoring of occupational safety as well as recreation and sanitation facilities. Enhance transparency in the labor inspection system by allowing online complaints and putting in place a standardized and clear mechanism. 3. Technology and innovation. Objectives. India should be among the top 50 countries in the Global Innovation Index by 2022-23. 5 of our scientific research institutions should be amongst the top 100 in the world. India should aim to spend at least 2% of gross domestic product (GDP) on R&D with equal contributions from the public and private sector. Current situation recognizing the crucial role of technology and innovation in economic development, India's policy makers have taken several initiatives to promote science, technology and innovation. See figure below. Various schemes have been launched to attract, nurture and retain young researchers and women scientists in the field of scientific research. Some important achievements in the field of science and technology are enumerated below. India has become a major destination for outsourced R&D activities. We currently have more than 1,100 R&D centers set up by multinational companies, MNCs such as IBM, Google, Microsoft, Intel, Lupin, Wockhardt, etc. These R&D centers cover areas including information and communication technologies, biotechnology, and aerospace, automotive, chemicals and materials technology. India's relatively strong intellectual property regime will facilitate its emergence as a major R&D center. Indian scientists are at the forefront of some global groundbreaking work. Recent contributions by Indian scientists to frontier research and technology have been encouraging. For example, 37 Indian scientists from 9 Indian institutions played a key role in the discovery of gravitational waves that received the Physics Nobel Prize in 2017. Indian scientists also contributed to the discovery of a neutron star merger at Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory, LIGO, USA. The development of BrahMos, advanced air defense supersonic interceptor missiles, diverse missiles and rocket systems, remotely piloted vehicles, light combat aircraft, etc. are brilliant examples of India's progress in strategic and defense technologies. India now ranks amongst a handful of nations that have credible capabilities in the field of space technology. The upgrading from SLV to ASLV and PSLV to GSLV, the first moon orbiter project Chandrayaan-1, Mars orbiter mission and the recent simultaneous launch of 104 satellites are India's significant achievements. India is now the third largest country in terms of the number of startups. This number is expected to rise exponentially in the coming years. The government has set up the Atal Innovation Mission, aimed to transform radically the innovation, entrepreneurship and startup ecosystem of the country. While India has improved in most areas of technology, it is also necessary to recognize the challenges that we need to overcome to become an innovation-led society. Constraints. Low R&D expenditure, especially from the private sector, is a key challenge facing the innovation ecosystem in India. The latest R&D statistics released by the National Science and Technology Management Information System (NSTMIS) of the Department of Science and Technology (DST) show that while R&D expenditure in India tripled in the period from 2004-05 to 2014-15, its size as a percentage of GDP remained at 0.7%. This is very low compared to the 2% and 1.2% spent by China for 2015 and Brazil for 2014, respectively. Countries like Israel spend as much as 4.3% of their GDP on R&D. Furthermore, while the share of the private sector in R&D investment in most technologically advanced countries is as high as 65% to 75%, it is only about 30% in India. The number of scientific R&D professionals in India at 218 per million population is distressingly low compared to China's 1,113 and USA's 4,019. The link between research, higher education and industry is weak and nascent. It needs to be strengthened and put on a firm platform. Our education system has so far not focused on cultivating a scientific temperament at an early age. Even at the later stages of an aspiring scientist's career, the lack of career opportunities in basic sciences leads to the diversion of potential researchers to other rewarding sectors. Lab to land time is too long. Renowned public-funded institutions like the Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, CSIR, Defense Research and Development Organization, DRDO, Bhabha Atomic Research Center, BARC, Indian Council of Medical Research, ICMR, Indian Council of Agricultural Research, ICAR, Indian Space Research Organization, ISRO, Indira Gandhi Center for Atomic Research, IGCAR, etc., along with prominent universities across the country, have developed many frontline technologies. However, the rate of transfer of these technologies to industry and for societal benefits is low. The adoption of indigenous innovations by Indian industry is not very encouraging. Frequent violation of preferential market access (PMA) is an issue leading to large-scale imports of foreign products and services. The public procurement system is heavily biased in favor of experienced and established products and technologies. This strongly discourages new and innovative technologies offered by startups, who do not get much needed support from government procurement. There has been poor progress in the development and deployment of affordable technologies for rural areas, particularly in agriculture, agro-processing, micro-irrigation, etc. The way forward. An empowered body is needed to steer holistically the management of science in the country. Its scope will include science education and scientific research as well as coordinating and guiding various science initiatives. The proposed body will help in pursuing interministerial, interdisciplinary research besides breaking silos among various scientific departments, agencies. The major weaknesses of public-funded R&D and technology institutions like CSIR, DRDO, BARC, ICMR and ISRO are their poor marketing skills and information dissemination. Some measures for enhancing technology commercialization by public-funded institutions are provided below. Value addition centers may be set up in each of these institutions for upscaling technologies 2, improving technologies from technology readiness level, TRL, 4 to TRL 6/7, 3, demonstrating industrial scale pilot production, if coordinating with investors to incubate entrepreneurs, v, bridging the gap between industry and technology development teams, y, enabling formal technology transfer, VII, enabling commercialization and marketing and v, providing technology support during production. DST should create a national technology data bank in coordination with all publicly funded R&D institutions. This will provide a central database for technologies that are ready for deployment or under development. Public-funded research institutions should consider shifting their focus to the development and deployment of socially relevant technologies in areas such as clean drinking water, sanitation, energy, affordable healthcare, organic farming, etc. These technologies have large potential for commercialization. Measures related to government procurement include the following. In all government procurements, international competitive bidding for both products and services should be resorted to only when Indian manufacturers are unable to supply products, services of comparable international quality. This will promote the Make in India initiative. Quarterly workshops may be organized for creating awareness among procurement managers of various ministries, departments, state governments, CPSUs about the DIPP's Public Procurement Order 2017, which aims to promote Make in India products, services. To adopt innovative technologies, experts, scientific practitioners should be mandatorily included on board committees related to government procurement. All RFQ documents should include a suitable clause in this regard. In order to promote procurement of goods, services developed by Indian startups, preference in the technical evaluation could be provided to them. To bring vibrancy to frugal innovations, a non-lapsable district innovation fund with a corpus of about 2 crore Indian rupees in each district may be created and used to promote grassroots innovations. AIM has already launched a TEL New India Challenges in partnership with 5 ministries to create products from technologies and prototypes in areas of national importance such as solid waste management, water and wastewater management, as well as road and rail transport. These, along with TEL incubation centers, AICs, will also provide the platform for promoting frugal innovation. More such challenges will be launched in partnership with ministries, and support will be provided to these ministries to adopt the resultant innovations. AIM has set up over 1,000 TEL Tinkering Labs (ATLs) around the country, covering over 625 districts. It is aimed to take this number to at least 5,000 by 2019 and 10,000 by 2020. Further expansion will be considered based on the outcomes of the first phase. To promote entrepreneurship and startups, AIM is supporting AICs across the country, including at Tier 2-3 locations. These include existing and new incubation centers. It is expected that more than 100 world-class incubation centers will be up and running by 2020. Foreign collaborators, consultants, visiting faculty, adjunct scientists, etc., need to be involved in pursuing R&D in the emerging areas of basic sciences such as nanotechnology, stem cell research, astronomy, genetics, next-generation genomics, drug discovery, etc. DST, in collaboration with Indian missions abroad, may identify discipline-wise foreign experts who can collaborate with Indian scientists to take basic research in these areas to the next level. The Higher Education Commission, once set up, may consider giving credits for innovation and startups and also setting up online entrepreneurial development courses in colleges and universities. 4. Industry objectives. Double the current growth rate of the manufacturing sector by 2022. Promote in a planned manner the adoption of the latest technology advancements, referred to as Industry 4.0, that will have a defining role in shaping the manufacturing sector in 2022. Current situation. India is the 5th largest manufacturer in the world with a gross value added (GVA) of 21,531.47 billion Indian rupees in 2017-18, second advance estimate for 2017-18 at 2011-12 prices. The sector registered a compound annual growth rate (CAGR) of around 7.7% between 2012-13 and 2017-18. The government has taken several initiatives to promote manufacturing. Among these are the Make in India action plan aimed at increasing the manufacturing sector's contribution to 25% of GDP by 2020, the Startup India Initiative to promote entrepreneurship and nurture innovation, and the Micro Units Development and Refinance Agency (MUDRA) and Stand Up India to facilitate access to credit. It has also undertaken massive recapitalization of public sector banks to ease availability of credit to micro, small and medium enterprises (MSMEs). Besides, it has undertaken major infrastructure projects, such as the setting up of industrial corridors to boost manufacturing. The Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion (DIP) has been engaging with states, UTs to enhance the ease of doing business. Following concerted efforts of the government, the WORLD Bank ranked India 100th among 190 countries in the Ease of Doing Business (EODB) in 2018. This was a jump of 34 positions since 2014. While these indices are useful for comparison, actual improvement in EODB will come only with greater coordination between the center and states. The foreign direct investment (FDI) regime has been substantially liberalized, significantly improving India's rank in terms of annual FDI inflows from 14 in 2010 to 9 in 2017. However, India receives only 25% of the FDI that China gets and only 10% of what the USA receives. FDI inflows into the manufacturing sector reached about 35% of total FDI. Manufacturing as a percentage of the gross domestic product has remained at about 16%. Improvements are evident in recent quarters, where manufacturing growth at 6.9% and 8.1% in Q2 and Q3, 2017-18 year-on-year as compared to 2016-17, outpaced GDP growth. Figure 4.1 shows the trend in manufacturing as a percentage of GVA from 2011-12 until 2017-18. Constraints. The main constraints on achieving the objectives set for India's industry in 2022-23 are the following. Regulatory uncertainty. Regulatory risks and policy uncertainty in the past have dented investor confidence. Investment. There has been a cyclical slowdown in fresh investment since 2011-12. Technology adoption. The adoption of new technologies like artificial intelligence, data analytics, machine-to-machine communications, robotics and related technologies, collectively called Industry 4.0, are a bigger challenge for SMEs than for organized large-scale manufacturing. Data security, reliability of data and stability in communication, transmission also pose challenges to technology adoption. Exports and insufficient domestic demand. There has been no export-driven industrial growth. Domestic demand alone may not be adequate for sustained, high-value manufacturing. Challenges to doing business. Despite recent improvements in our global EODB rank, it continues to be a drag on the system. This is also true of investment conditions in the states. Getting construction permits, enforcing contracts, paying taxes, starting a business and trading across borders continue to constrain doing business. Way forward. Demand generation, augmentation of industrial infrastructure and promotion of MSMEs. The government can play a crucial role in creating domestic manufacturing capabilities by leveraging proposed public procurement and projects. Mega public projects such as Sagarmala, Bharatmala, industrial corridors, and the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana (PMAY) can stimulate domestic manufacturing activities provided the projects are suitably structured and demand is aggregated strategically. This should be accompanied by simplification of the regulatory process. The Madhepura Electric Locomotive Project, a joint venture between the Indian Railways and the French multinational Alstom, provides a good example of how mega projects can be leveraged to boost domestic production. The project enabled effective transfer of technology and the availability of state-of-the-art locomotives for the railways. The Madhepura model is replicable in the defense, aerospace, railways and shipping sectors. Set up a portal to monitor projects beyond a given threshold so that any roadblocks are identified and addressed on a real-time basis. State governments should be encouraged or incentivized to contribute data to this portal. NITI Aayog's Development Monitoring and Evaluation Office (TMEO) can help set up the portal. An interministerial body with representatives of state governments and project promoters as special invitees may be constituted. Efforts should be made to develop self-sufficient clusters of manufacturing competence, with cluster administrative authorities empowered to provide single-window clearances to entrepreneurs and investors. Industrial corridors should address the lack of infrastructure and logistics. Logistics will need to be supplemented with warehousing and other elements of the manufacturing supply chain. NITI Aayog could work with states to prepare manufacturing clusters and develop export strategies based on their sector competitiveness and resource strengths. A cluster should have supporting industries and infrastructure. It should also develop a local brand and distribution channel through an e-commerce platform. A cluster administration office should be given the responsibility to award factory permissions and compliances. For India to become the world's workshop, we should encourage further FDI in manufacturing, particularly when it is supported with buybacks and export orders. Streamline discretionary powers vested at different levels of governance by adopting digitized processes and making all approvals electronic in a transparent, time-bound manner. Disruptive technology, while leading to job losses in traditional areas, also presents new job opportunities. A greater connect between government, industry, academia is required to identify the changing requirements in manufacturing and prepare an employable workforce. In the context of employability of engineers, there is a need for thorough review of standards of engineering education and its linkages with industry. E-commerce can be the driver of overall economic growth over the next decade through its impact on generating demand, expanding manufacturing, employment generation and greater transparency. A committee, chaired by CEO, NITI Aayog, examined issues related to the e-commerce industry. It made recommendations for the sector's growth including increasing internet access, digitizing payments, further improving transportation infrastructure, logistics and distributed warehousing support. These may be examined for implementation at the earliest. Harmonize Indian quality standards with global standards in many sectors. Lack of harmonization has affected Indian exports and prevented the leveraging of trade agreements adequately. For e.g., the medical device industry would benefit greatly from conformity to standards that are essential for new products to be acceptable to doctors and patients abroad. The issues of regulations and standards setting are also intertwined. The following initiative is required in this regard. Task the Bureau of Indian Standards and Quality Council of India with assessing the improvements in standards and productivity required to achieve global standards. Address the following issues in respect of MSMEs. Setting up of mega parks and manufacturing clusters in labor-intensive sectors with common facilities to reduce costs and improve quality. It is also recommended that state governments should set up plug-and-play parks, flatted factories to ensure international productivity standards. Workers of industrial units in the new mega parks should have decent accommodation within reasonable proximity of the workplace. An expert committee should examine sector-specific pain points and make its recommendations within 3 months. The Department of Public Enterprises (DPE) should ensure registration of all public sector units (PSUs) on the Trade Receivables Discounting System (TREDS) portal. Initiate a small business research program in some select ministries for encouraging R&D in MSMEs. Industry 4.0. Launch a major initiative to push industry to adopt Industry 4.0. Industry 4.0 is characterized by increasing digitization and interconnection of products, value chains and business models. It will significantly impact sectors like automobile, pharmaceuticals, chemicals and financial services and will result in operational efficiencies, cost control and revenue growth. Experts feel that emerging markets like India could benefit tremendously from the adoption of Industry 4.0 practices. In his 2018 budget speech, the Finance Minister mandated NITI Aayog to initiate a national program directing India's efforts on artificial intelligence. On a similar note, 90AAYOG could organize a discussion on Industry 4.0, inviting leading manufacturing companies from various sectors including automobile, auto components, electrical and electronics, chemicals, cement, steel, etc., along with concerned ministries to discuss plans for adopting Industry 4.0. The Indian Institute of Science, a few select Indian Institutes of Technology (IITs), National Institutes of Technology (NITs), and other premier engineering colleges should create specialized training programs on smart manufacturing to address the shortage of high-tech human resources. The Department of Heavy Industry (DHI) should develop the Central Manufacturing Technology Institute (CMTI), Bangalore, as a center of excellence for pursuing R&D in Industry 4.0 technologies and systems. The Department of Science and Technology should spearhead industry academia R&D projects on cyber-physical systems. The development of industries that produce the key building blocks forming the basis of Industry 4.0 could be incentivized. Incentives could be focused on MSMEs that manufacture products including sensors, actuators, drives, synchronous motors, communication systems, computer displays, and auxiliary electromechanical systems. Similarly, industries adopting Industry 4.0 standards could be provided support for a fixed period of time. Reliability, stability and integrity of smart manufacturing systems can be increased by creating Indian standards for the systems and subsystems for adoption by manufacturers. Ease of doing business. Introduce a single window system in all states that provides a single point of contact between investor and government and facilitates all required licenses and approvals. It should be based on stakeholder consultation. For efficient approval, inspection process, develop a system of accountability for major stakeholders like inspection bodies, testing labs, etc. For geographical planning and ease of environmental clearances, adopt the system of using Geographic Information System (GIS)-based maps at all levels to create pre-approved land banks for manufacturing facilities. This is already being practiced in some states. In such designated land banks, standards can be clearly laid down in advance relating to I. Environmental requirements, 2. Building bylaws, and 3. Safety and other norms. Replicate in other states the Gujarat Pollution Control Board (GPCB) environmental audit scheme based on third-party certification. To strengthen third-party certification systems, develop suitable accreditation agencies. Ensure the seamless integration of the Shram Suvidha portal and state agencies' portals. 5. Doubling farmers' income. 1. Modernizing agriculture. Objectives. Modernize agricultural technology, increase productivity, efficiency and crop diversification. Generate income and employment through a paradigm shift that ensures food security while maximizing value addition in agriculture. Current situation. The existing yield levels of a majority of crops remains much lower than the world average. The predominant causes are low irrigation, use of low-quality seeds, low adoption of improved technology, and knowledge deficit about improved agricultural practices. Close to 53% of cropped area is water-stressed. Rainwater management practices and services are resource-starved. This limits a farmer's capacity to undertake multiple cropping and leads to inefficient utilization of land resources. Inefficient extension delivery systems have led to the presence of large yield gaps as well. Yield gaps exist at two levels in India. First, there is a gap between best scientific practices and best field practices. The second gap exists between best field practices and the average farmer. There exist significant yield gaps both amongst and within states. Yield gaps have been found to exist in even highly productive states such as Punjab. Closing these gaps provides an opportunity to enhance productivity and income significantly. This further implies that states with low productivity or large yield gaps have significant potential for catch-up growth in their productivity levels. Demand-side factors favor the expansion of area under fruits and vegetables and livestock products. These enterprises also offer better income. Staple crops, cereals, pulses and oilseeds occupy 77% of the total gross cropped area, GCA, but contribute only 41% to the output of the crop sector. High-value crops, HVCs, contribute an almost similar amount to total output as staples do, but they occupy only 19% of the GCA. Research has also shown that diversification to the fruits and vegetables segment is likely to benefit small and medium farmers more than large ones. Over the past few years, new development initiatives aimed at modernizing agriculture have been introduced. Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana (PMKSY) aims to expand irrigation coverage whilst promoting water use efficiency. Area under micro-irrigation has grown 2.5 times in the last 4 years. The second cycle of the Soil Health Card (SHC) scheme is underway, which will focus on job creation and entrepreneurship development through local entrepreneurship models. So far, 3.76 crore SHCs have been distributed under the second cycle. Constraints. 1. Use of outdated and inappropriate technology is the main reason for low productivity of crops and livestock. 2. Given the predominance of small and marginal farmers in Indian agriculture, affordability becomes a significant constraint on technology adoption by farmers. 3. There exist several bottlenecks hampering on farm adoption of technology developed in public sector. 4. Agricultural research in the country is constrained by resource inadequacy, regulations and intellectual property rights, IPR. 5. Multiple private and public sources supplying different information to farmers create confusion. 6. A huge gap exists between the demand for and supply of skills in agriculture, hindering diversification, adoption of precision agriculture and on-farm post-harvest value addition. 7. India has not caught up to the rest of the world in terms of technology, which has led to the dominance of inefficient production practices, such as flood irrigation, at the farm level. Renewed focus on on-ground absorption of technology, market intelligence, skills and extension and modernizing trade and commerce in agriculture are needed to modernize agriculture in India. 8. Both production and marketing suffer due to the absence of adequate capital. 9. Low scale is a serious constraint on the adoption of improved practices and in the input and output market. Way forward productivity and efficiency. Increase area under irrigation. Irrigation coverage needs to be increased to 53% of gross cropped area, GCA, by 2022-23. The focus should be on increasing coverage through micro-irrigation. Increase adoption of hybrid and improved seeds. States should take the lead through the following measures. Dynamic seed development plans are required. These may be based on crop-wise area each season separately, seed rate per hectare used, desired, targeted seed replacement rate and crop-wise seed requirement. Crop-wise requirement should be worked out based on historical trends, introduction of new varieties and replacement of poor-yielding varieties. States should aim to increase the seed replacement rate (SRR) to 33% for self-pollinated crops and 50% for cross-pollinated crops in alternative years. Increase variety replacement ratio (VRR), phase out old varieties of seeds and replace them with hybrid and improved seeds to enhance productivity. The Indian Council of Agricultural Research, ICAR, along with state agricultural universities, SAUs, should develop climate-resilient varieties of crops suitable for the 128 agroclimatic zones of the country, through farmer participatory plant breeding and adopting farm varietal trials from the third year of the development of the seed. Strengthen seed testing facilities. Seed testing facilities need upgradation in terms of both personnel and technical expertise. Regular performance monitoring is required to maintain the quality of test results. Uniform national procedure for seed licensing. To tackle the problem of heterogeneity in seed licensing procedures across states, the central government should develop model guidelines for seed licensing and support states in implementing these. Efficient fertilizer usage. Strengthen the SHC scheme and include not merely 9 but all 16 parameters in the tests. This will ensure SHC-based fertilizer distribution at the ground level. Seed SHCs with the integrated fertilizer management system. Link SHCs with Kisan credit cards and make SHCs mandatory for subsidies. Ensure proper functioning of the SHC labs. Reorient fertilizer subsidy policy. The current lopsided fertilizer subsidy policy needs to bring secondary and micronutrients on the same nutrient-based subsidy (NBS) platform as phosphorus P and potash K. Regulate pesticide use. Align the pesticide regulatory framework with food safety laws to make adoption broad-based. Strengthen extension activities to ensure that best practices reach the average farmer. Custom hiring centers. Madhya Pradesh has had demonstrable success with their custom hiring center model to hasten the pace of farm mechanization. This model should be replicated nationwide by employing rural youth and promoting entrepreneurship. Subsidies on liquid fertilizer. Targeted subsidy should be provided on liquid fertilizer to encourage fertigation with micro-irrigation. Investment subsidies for micro-irrigation. Rather than power and water subsidies, investment subsidies for micro-irrigation can be provided through the DBT mode. Strengthening extension systems. Synergy between Agriculture Technology Management Agency (ATMA) and Krishi Vigyan Kendras (KVKs). The ATMA program needs to be reoriented to include bottom-up planning at the district and block levels to develop strategic research extension plans (SREP). Further decentralization and autonomy are essential to the success of this program. Subject matter specialists at KVKs should orient their research to the block action plans developed by ATMA. Public-private partnership in KVKs. The guiding principles of ATMA provide for the promotion of PPP in extension delivery. With each KVK in possession of approximately 50 acres of land, KVKs should incubate private sector initiatives in extension delivery. Market-led extension. Give priority to extension services that disseminate information to farmers regarding crop selection. 2. Demand for and supply of crop produce. 3. Expected price of commodity and, if availability of infrastructure facilities for storage, transport and marketing of produce. Value-added extension. Prioritize value-added extension services to enable a reduction in post-harvest losses by converting raw agricultural produce to processed products. This allows for increased price realization and contributes towards increasing farmers' income. District-level skill mapping. ICAR and SAUs should map the demand for and supply of skills in agriculture at the district level and coordinate with skill development missions to impart the required skills to farmers and agricultural labor. Replicate dealer training program in state agricultural universities. The National Institute of Agricultural Extension Management's managed dealer training program should be replicated in SAUs, with diploma holders granted licenses to conduct extension activities. Sustainable water use in agriculture. About 83% of water is used in agriculture. The solution to resolving India's imminent water crisis lies in conserving water in agriculture. Therefore, more efficient irrigation technologies, water harvesting, and better crop selection must be encouraged. Diversification, promotion of high-value crops, HVCs, and livestock. High-value crops. Encourage diversification to HVCs, design an incentive mechanism to wean farmers away from cereal crops to HVCs. The area under fruits and vegetables needs to increase by 5% every year. Establish regional production belts. As in the cluster-based approach, regional production belts for HVCs need to be identified and supported through the Mission on Integrated Development of Horticulture (MIDH). Make SHCs mandatory in these belts. Use of hybrid technology in vegetables. Shift to using hybrid varieties for vegetables. At present, 10% of the cropped area under vegetables is under hybrids. Shifting to hybrids has the potential to increase yields by 1.5 to 3 times and provide a significant increase in income. Rootstocks for production of fruits. Rootstock technology has shown the capacity to double production and be resilient to climate stress. Measures should be taken to standardize and promote usage of rootstocks to produce fruits. Smart horticulture. There have been pockets of success spread throughout the country, using techniques such as high-density plantation, protected cultivation, and organic production. These methods need to be documented and replicated at the national level. It is recommended that a mission on smart horticulture may be set up to identify and promote new technologies. This mission must work in synergy with various agricultural research institutions in the country. Strengthen market for organic products. Targeted efforts to create a market for niche products is recommended. Spices unique to a state can be branded by the Spice Board to encourage the production of organic spices. Convert agricultural waste. Recycling and utilizing agricultural waste would give a further fill-up to farmers' income. Livestock and fisheries. Breed indigenous cattle with exotic breeds. Breeding of indigenous cattle with exotic breeds needs to be encouraged to arrest the issue of inbreeding. This will enable greater gene coverage, reduce diseases, and greater resilience to climate change. Promote and develop bull mother farms, employing multiple ovulation and embryo transfer technologies. These farms can significantly enhance milk productivity through the supply of cattle with enhanced milk potential to farmers. Village level procurement systems. Installing of bulk milk chillers and facilities for high value conversion of milk are needed to promote dairy in states. The private sector should be incentivized to create a value chain for HVCs and dairy products at the village level. Convergence of schemes in fisheries sector. Integrate the Blue Revolution scheme with MGNREGA. Ponds created through MGNREGA should be used to promote aquaculture and can be used to create potential clusters as well. Capacity building for fish breeders and farmers. Establish fish cooperative organizations and run village level schemes in coordination with panchayats to disseminate best practices and research. 6. Doubling farmers' income. 2. Policy and governance. Objectives. Create a policy environment that enables income security for farmers whilst maintaining India's food security. Encourage the participation of the private sector in agricultural development to transition from agriculture to robust agri-business systems. Promote through government policies the emergence of agripreneurs so that even small and marginal farmers can capture a higher share of value addition from farmgate to fork. Current situation. The mismatch between the contribution of agriculture to national income and share in employment has remained large and has widened. The manufacturing and service sectors have failed to absorb the excessive workforce in agriculture. Consequently, value addition per worker in agriculture grew slowly and income per farmer never crossed one-third of the income of a non-agriculture worker since the 1980s. The country took 22 years to double farmers' income at an annual growth rate of 3.31% during 1993-1994 to 2015-16. Doubling farmers' income between 2015-16 and 2022-23 will require an annual growth rate of 10.4% in farmers' real income. Corporate investment in agricultural infrastructure has not exceeded 2%. In the years post-independence, the policy structure was focused on increased production and productivity to ensure food security for India. However, to achieve the target of doubling farmers' income by 2022-23, we need to shift our focus from agriculture to agribusiness. The current government has taken several steps to improve private investment in agriculture. 100% foreign direct investment (FDI) was allowed in 2016-17. Similarly, the Sampada scheme targets creation of food processing infrastructure. The budget allocation to the food processing sector was doubled in the Union Budget 2018-19. Introduction of the Model Agricultural Produce and Livestock Marketing Act 2017, Model Contract Farming Act, new guidelines for agroforestry are some other key policy initiatives taken over the past few years. Constraints. 1. Fragmented land holdings. Agriculture is characterized by an extremely fragmented landholding structure with an average farm size of 1.15 hectares and the predominance of small and marginal farmers, with those holding less than 2 hectares, accounting for 85% of agricultural households. This makes it difficult for them to access credit or new technology, severely affecting farm productivity and hence, farmers' incomes. 2. Low price realization. There exists a large gap between farm harvest prices (FHP) and retail prices. See figure 6.1. Prices also tend to fall below the minimum support prices in a good production year, leading to agrarian distress. Mechanisms need to be developed to ensure remunerative prices to farmers in both good and bad monsoon years. 3. Non-farm employment. Lack of non-farm employment opportunities has resulted in excessive dependence on agriculture for livelihood among both small and marginal farmers as well as among the landless. 4. Agricultural credit. Despite an allocation of more than 11 lakh Indian rupees crore of commercial credit, access to institutional credit remains a constraint, especially in the case of tenant farmers. 5. Agricultural trade. Exporters of agro-commodities are not successful in raising their share in global markets because of uncertainty in the foreign trading regime. Way forward. Marketing reforms. Many of the constraints in marketing can be addressed by adopting the Model Agricultural Produce and Livestock Marketing Act (APLM) 2017, which provides for progressive agricultural marketing reforms, including the setting up of markets in the private sector, allowing direct sales to exporters, processors and customers, farmer-consumer markets, trading, single point levy of market fee, a unified single trading license in a state, declaring warehouses, silos, cold storage as market subyards, and the launch of the National Market for Agriculture. APLM should be adopted by all states as expeditiously as possible. Amend Essential Commodities Act. The Essential Commodities Act, which has proven a disincentive to large investment in agricultural technology and infrastructure, should be replaced with a modern statute that balances the interests of farmers and consumers. Stable export policy. In consultation with all stakeholders, the Government of India should come up with a coherent and stable agricultural export policy, ideally with a 5 to 10 year time horizon and a built-in provision for a mid-term review. Efforts should be made to achieve this urgently. Price realization. The government should consider replacing the Commission on Agricultural Costs and Prices (CACP) by an agriculture tribunal in line with the provisions of Article 323B of the Constitution. NITI Aayog should set up a group to examine the following: replacing the minimum support price (MSP) by a minimum reserve price (MRP), which could be the starting point for auctions at Mandis. Separating the criteria for MSPs for surplus produce, 2, for deficit but globally available products, and 3, for products that are in deficit both domestically and globally. Examine options for including private traders operating in markets to complement the minimum support price regime through a system of incentives and commission payments. Raising MSP or prices can only be a partial solution to the problem of assuring remunerative returns to farmers. A long-term solution lies in the creation of a competitive, stable and unified national market to enable better price discovery, and a long-term trade regime favorable to exports. Agriculture Advisory Service. An effective and technology-driven agriculture advisory service may be considered on the lines of those of the United States Department of Agriculture, USDA, and the European Union, EU. The mandate would be to ensure that farmers adopt an optimal cropping pattern that maximizes their income. Futures trade. Futures trade should be encouraged. Removal of entry barriers to increase market depth should be considered. Crop insurance (PMFBY) needs to be modified to promote weather-based insurance. Increase non-loany farmers' insurance coverage. Allow for mixed cropping and increase the number of crops notified. Contract farming. Encourage states to adopt the Model Contract Farming Act 2018. Contract farming can be thought of as a form of price futures. The contract will specify the price and quality at which the farmer's produce will be purchased. This protects the farmer in cases where prices fall below the MSP. Box 1. Salient features of the Model Contract Farming Act 2018. The Draft Model Contract Farming Act 2018 is an attempt to provide an enabling environment for contract farming to thrive. First, the Act takes contract farming out of the ambit of Agricultural Produce Marketing Committees (APMCs). Under the Model Act, every agreement shall be registered with a Registering and Agreement Recording Committee, consisting of officials from departments such as Agriculture, Horticulture, Animal Husbandry, Marketing, Fisheries and Rural Development. The committee can be set up at the district, block or taluk levels. The Act also contains a provision for the creation of a state-level contract farming, promotion and facilitation authority. Dispute resolution is essential to the smooth functioning of the Model Act. Both farmers and buyers need to be protected from risks pertaining to executing the contract. For example, buyers are exposed to the risk of the farmer selling his produce to a third party, whilst the farmer is exposed to the risk of receiving a price below the agreed price. The Model Act contains several provisions for dispute resolution. Briefly, these are negotiation and reconciliation for a mutually acceptable solution, 2. Referral of the matter to a nominated dispute settlement officer, and 3. Appealing to the contract farming, promotion and facilitation authority if no suitable solution is found through solutions, and 2. Land aggregation. Encourage states to adopt the Model Agriculture Land Leasing Act 2016. The Model Act aims to improve land access to small and marginal farmers through land leasing, whilst also providing for a mechanism for tenants to avail of institutional credit. A major constraint to land leasing under the present regulatory environment is the unwillingness of landowners to lease out land due to fears of land capture by tenants. The Model Act spells out the rights and responsibilities of both landowners and tenants. Like the Model Contract Farming Act 2018, this act too contains provisions for dispute resolution within a specified time frame. Digitize land records. Complete digitization of land records is a must for effective implementation of land leasing. Geotagging, along with location-agnostic online registration of land records to generate updated land records, must be carried out or promote farmer-producer organizations, FPOs. There are now 741 FPOs in the country, managed under the aegis of Small Farmers Agribusiness Consortium (SFAC). They have demonstrated that aggregating farmers can help achieve economies of scale. The benefits accorded to startups under the Startup India mission need to be extended to FPOs as well. National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development (NABARD's) model of joint liability groups can be promoted to channelize small growers into the value chain. Research and development. Focus on precision agriculture, support research on energy-friendly irrigation pumps, micro-irrigation, climate-smart technologies, Internet of Things, IoT, and use of technology in animal husbandry to monitor animal behavior, health and production to prepare for future challenges. Raise research spending. Research spending, currently at 0.3%, needs to be increased to at least 1% of agricultural GDP. Create a knowledge hub to disseminate best practices. It is essential that new technology be adopted at the farm level. The performance of Krishi Vigyan Kendras (KVKs) should be regularly reviewed by external agencies, and well-performing KVKs must be strengthened to disseminate best practices at the field level. Develop models of integrated farming. Research so far has focused on practices for individual crops or enterprises. The Indian Council of Agricultural Research (ICAR) and state agriculture universities (SAUs) should focus on providing recommendations across the farming value chain, covering production, post-production, processing, and other value addition activities. Innovation. Several breakthroughs have the clear potential for quickly doubling farmers' income. One is the recorded success of zero-budget natural farming by Subhash Palekar. It is now being adopted across the country and providing notable increases in farmers' net income by sharply reducing costs of production and improving incomes by raising yields and improving the quality of agricultural produce. 2. There are patented herbal inputs that improve soil quality and make plants more pest resistant. These herbal inputs, for which actual performance data is now available for a few thousand farmers, need to be applied across the country. 3. Rapid progress has also been made in organic farming techniques, which have also helped improve incomes of cultivators and dairy farmers. These should be carefully examined for possible application across the country. Non-farm income. Moving labor out of agriculture into manufacturing will go a long way towards the goal of doubling farmers' income. According to estimates prepared by Chand, Srivastav and Singh, 2017, nearly 2/3 of rural income is generated in non-agricultural activities. In non-agricultural activities in rural areas, another avenue is shifting farmers to agro-business and farm-related skills which are currently in short supply. Create and nurture agripreneurs for achieving greater value addition through agro-processing and propagation of modern extension services. India will also have to accelerate growth in the manufacturing, services and exports sectors to wean labor away from agriculture. This will result in higher productivity and income for farmers. 7. Doubling farmers' income. 3. Value chain and rural infrastructure. Objectives. Transform the rural economy through the creation of modern rural infrastructure and an integrated value chain system. Leverage the value chain to boost India's exports of food products. Create occupational diversification and quality employment opportunities for doubling farmers' income by 2022-23. Current situation. Despite rapid progress, rural India suffers from an infrastructure deficit. The present government has done an admirable job in achieving full village electrification and accelerating the pace of connecting habitations through the Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana (PMGSY). Similarly, household electrification has been given a significant push under the Saubhagya scheme. Agriculture infrastructure, such as rural markets, warehouses, cold chain, farm machinery hubs and public irrigation need upgradation. Based on the recommendations of the Dalwai Committee on doubling farmers' income, the number of additional markets required comes to 3,548. The recent 2018-19 budget announcement to develop the existing 22,000 rural periodic markets (RPMs) into Grameen agriculture markets (GRAMs) will offer better market access to small and marginal farmers. This initiative recognizes GRAMs as facilities for first-stage post-production activities, enabling aggregation and transport from the village level to wholesale markets. The Electronic National Agriculture Market (ENAM) was launched in 2016 to create a unified national market. So far, 479 mandis across 14 states and UTs have been integrated on the platform. The lack of an adequate and efficient cold chain infrastructure leads to massive post-harvest losses, estimated at 92,561 crore Indian rupees annually. Perishables account for the bulk of post-harvest losses. Moreover, as a recent report indicates, most existing cold storages are single commodity storages, resulting in their capacities lying idle for up to 6 months a year. The cold chain infrastructure is also unevenly distributed among states. Inadequate cold chain infrastructure hampers India's food exports as well. Countries across the world have stringent guidelines for import of agricultural and processed food products. The European Union (EU) has raised more notifications, issued more rejections and destroyed more consignments from India as compared to consignments from other developing countries such as Turkey, Brazil, China and Vietnam. India has huge export potential, reflected in the fact that its domestic commodity prices were below export parity prices in 72% of cases. The present government has taken several steps to modernize the agri-value chain. The Sampada Central Sector Scheme aims to supplement agriculture by modernizing processing activities and decreasing agri-waste. Similarly, in the 2018-19 budget, Operation Green, on the lines of Operation Flood, was announced. This scheme aims to promote farmer-producer organizations, agri-logistics, processing facilities and professional management of such operations. Constraints. 1. Public and private investments in agriculture have remained low since the early 90s. Bottlenecks in implementation and a high degree of uncertainty have further reduced investor appetite for agricultural investments. 2. Inability to acquire land for setting up of market yards, resulting from the restrictions on land leasing and land acquisition, is another major constraint. 3. Even the existing marketing infrastructure suffers because of a lack of finances, manpower and proper facilities. Sub-market yards largely function as a location for government procurement and do not provide opportunities for open auction. Further, they are irregular in their operations and handle less than 5% of the volume handled in principal yards. 4. Poor maintenance of rural roads is a major constraint as well. Linkages with local and feeder roads remain suboptimal. 5. In the electricity sector, separate feeders for supply of power to agriculture and domestic electrification have not been carried out in many states. 6. Lack of agriculture best practices hinders India's food exports. Interventions at the farmer producer level are needed to ensure that products meet export standards. However, factors such as the lack of a traceability mechanism from the farm to the consumer, fragmented holdings and restrictions on direct procurement of products from farmers in some states makes it virtually impossible to ensure that products meet export quality standards. Way forward. Markets and value chain. Infrastructure status for agriculture value chains, warehousing, pack houses, ripening chambers, and cold storages, including those set up at the village level, should be accorded full-fledged infrastructure status to enable them to avail of the fiscal benefits that come with infrastructure status. Village-level procurement centers, to benefit small and marginal farmers, government collection centers and warehousing facilities should be set up at the village block level. The budget announcement of developing Grameen agricultural markets (GRAMs) will help develop the agricultural marketing infrastructure and bring markets closer to the farm gate. Link production to processing. Village-level collection centers for fruits and vegetables should be linked to larger processing units. Actively engage the private sector in developing processing centers near rural periodic markets (RPMs). Food processing. A greater focus should be placed on the food processing industry for enhancing value addition in vegetable and fruit crops. The government has now shifted its attention to promoting agripreneurs. This will result in rapid modernization of the agriculture sector. Rural markets. Develop private market yards. Agro processors and food processors that wish to establish backward integration to secure their raw material should partner with the government in organizing sourcing through the RPMs. Upgrade wholesale markets. Upgrade wholesale markets with facilities for temporary storage, packhouse operations and cold storage facilities. Warehouse upgradation. Pledge financing at warehouses through negotiable warehouse receipts. NWR needs to be adopted and popularized as an alternative means of financing. The Department of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare (DACFW) should draw up guidelines to promote warehouse-based post-harvest loans and ANWR trading. Block-level resource centers. Establish functional block-level resource centers to create value chains, targeting clusters of villages along with social services. It will create an integrated solution for the farmer to access his/her requirements for agriculture and other services. It will also add to employment generation at the local level by engaging youth and creating village-level entrepreneurs. Convergence in government initiatives. Coordination is needed between the initiatives of the Ministry of Agriculture, Food Processing, and Commerce to develop effective procurement linkages, processing facilities, retail chains, and export activity. This will facilitate synergies between various initiatives such as the Rashtriya Krishi Vikas Yojana (RKVY) of the Agriculture Ministry, Viability Gap Funding of the Ministry of Commerce for cold chains and warehousing infrastructure development, and Pradhan Mantri Kisan Sampada Yojana of MOFPI. Strengthen railway freight operations. Railway freight operations should be strengthened through temperature-controlled containers and loading and unloading facilities to reduce post-harvest losses and connect landlocked states to export markets. Rural roads, electricity and mechanization. Maintenance of rural roads through women SHGs. The maintenance of roads by women SHGs has been experimented with by some states, Uttarakhand for example, and has been found to be very promising. This model could be replicated by other states. Revisit criteria for identification of rural habitats for road connectivity to ensure better inclusion. The criteria for identification of habitats for rural roads connectivity in hill and left-wing extremism (LWE) affected districts must be revisited. Incentivize feeder separation. All distribution companies (DISCOMs) need to be incentivized for rural feeder separation. Agriculture connections and electricity supply feeders should be separated from domestic rural electricity supply. Incentivize private investment in farm implements. Private entrepreneurs should be incentivized to establish small farm implement mechanization hubs for every 1,000 hectares and big machinery hubs for every 5,000 hectares of cultivated area. Export enablers. Develop export-oriented clusters. The Agricultural and Processed Food Export Development Authority (APDA) has been championing the development of export-oriented clusters with common infrastructure facilities. These clusters should contain a functional end-to-end cold chain system along with processing facilities. Increase the number of testing laboratories. There exists a shortage of testing laboratories essential for health certificates for exports. Private laboratories should be extended financial support to achieve international accreditation. As suggested by APDA, agricultural universities should also seek to get their labs accredited by APDA. Augment cargo handling facilities at airports. APDA has suggested augmenting the capacity of the Ahmedabad Air Cargo Complex and Mumbai Airport to handle agricultural cargo. Green channel clearance. Efforts must be made to set up a green channel for perishable produce at identified airports handling cargo. Regulatory frameworks to combat rejections in export markets. Regulatory frameworks regarding use of pesticide, growth hormones, and antibiotics for marine produce need to be developed and implemented effectively to curb the rejection rate in the export market. Ensure traceability mechanism. Promotion of farmer-producer organizations, FPOs, export-based clusters and contract farming will go a long way towards ensuring traceability of farm produce, a key export requirement. 8. Financial inclusion. Objectives. Banking for the unbanked. Bank accounts. Ensuring universal access to bank accounts, which are a gateway to all financial services. Digital payment services. Providing access to digital payment services and increasing its penetration. Securing the unsecured. Insurance and social security. Ensuring universal coverage of insurance for life, accidents, etc., and of pensions and other retirement planning services. Asset diversification. Allowing diversification of asset portfolio of households through increased participation in capital markets. Better access to credit at a reasonable cost for those presently excluded. Current situation. The government has launched many flagship schemes to promote financial inclusion and provide financial security to empower the poor and unbanked in the country. These include the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana, Stand Up India Scheme, Pradhan Mantri Jeevan Jyoti Bima Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Suraksha Bima Yojana, and Atal Pension Yojana. In addition, the promotion of Aadhaar and direct benefit transfer schemes facilitate financial inclusion. These schemes have led to significant progress. According to World Bank data, in 2014, 53% of adults had a bank account. This increased to 80% in 2017, which is now comparable to China. Many recent independent studies have documented the increased ownership and active use of bank accounts because of the Jan Dhan scheme. There has also been an increase in the penetration of low-cost insurance schemes and pension schemes. Even as the importance of financial assets is increasing for Indian households, physical assets continue to be the predominant asset class for savings for them. Awareness and use of mobile payments in India had been low. In 2016, the percentage of the population using mobile money services in India was only 1% compared to Bangladesh 40%, Pakistan 9%, Kenya 81%, and Tanzania 61%. Many of these models in other countries have been driven by non-banking providers such as telecommunication companies, using modes of communication such as unstructured supplementary service data, USSD. However, after demonetization and the launch of the Bheem platform, penetration of mobile payments has improved. Several new initiatives such as Aadhaar-enabled payment services, payment banks, etc., will boost the use of mobile payments. In terms of credit access, India has considerable ground to make up. In 2016, the number of loan accounts per 1,000 adults was 154 in India. In comparison, the number of loan accounts per 1,000 adults was 88 in Bangladesh, 26 in Pakistan, 417 in South Africa, and 231 in Kenya. Similarly, bank credit to GDP ratio in India is 51% as compared to 98% in China in 2016. Constraints. 1. Lack of financial literacy amongst low-income households and small informal businesses. 2. The high cost of operations of the traditional banking model. 3. Excessive regulatory requirements on products and market entry, and conservative regulatory approach to new technologies. Way forward. 1. Launching a new scheme for comprehensive financial literacy. An Artik Siksha Abhiyan will help improve financial literacy and may be integrated in the regular school curriculum. Besides, efforts to improve financial literacy should be complemented by mass media campaigns to provide information on financial products and their use. 2. Assess the performance of banking correspondents and give better incentives. Given the infeasibility of locating branches in every nook and corner of the country, bank correspondents are used to reach out to prospective clients. However, an inadequate compensation structure makes correspondent banking unattractive. The issue of inadequate training is being addressed by the RBI, which has developed a framework for certification for both basic and advanced levels. There is also a need to create better monetary incentives for banking correspondents as well as to provide them better training. 3. Facilitating growth of online and paperless banking. Paperless banking will reduce friction, documentation proof requirements, and the cost of banking services. This, in turn, will bring a larger proportion of the population within the ambit of the formal financial system. The following actions are required on the policy front. Ease transaction limits for KYC-based deposit and loan accounts. Push digital signature for loan accounts by asking public sector banks to carry out at least 25% of their transactions through paperless accounts by 2022-23. Expand DigiLocker services by including more issuers of documents. 4. Using technology to improve the assessment of creditworthiness for households and informal businesses. One of the main constraints in providing low-income households and informal businesses is the lack of information available with formal creditors to determine their creditworthiness. This results in high cost of credit. This constraint can be overcome by the adoption of appropriate technology. Create a new data sharing framework that builds on the success of Jan Dhan and Aadhaar platforms to enable easier access to credit with adequate safeguards for maintaining data privacy. Existing gaps in land records such as transfers of ancestral properties, conversion to freehold, regularization of colonies, extension of limited tenure patas, etc., need to be filled. In addition, a central landholding register could be prepared and maintained in a digital format. In addition to greater digitization, there is also a need to strengthen cybersecurity in the country. A common cybersecurity framework across different stakeholders should be created. 5. Leverage payment banks and other platforms to scale up payment systems in underserved areas. Post offices are familiar sights in all villages. Payment banks, including the India Post Payment Bank, can potentially revolutionize the payment system like telecom companies did in Africa and other South Asian countries, with innovative products like mobile money. A flexible and proactive approach towards regulations on payment banks, such as regulations on minimum capital requirements, transaction amounts, and restriction on investments, should be adopted to ensure that the payment bank model becomes commercially viable and scalable. Payments through the USSD channel have an advantage over the internet in that it can also cover a large proportion of non-smartphone users. This has been the experience from the successful scale-up of payment systems in many African countries. In India, USSD can be particularly useful in rural areas where some segments still do not have reliable access to the internet. Thus, the USSD channel should be promoted for government and non-government payment platforms. Further, fee on failed USSD transactions should be refunded to consumers to enable greater participation. 6. Overhaul the regulatory framework governing formal financial products to attract households. Household acceptance of formal financial products, such as insurance, equity, etc., can be increased if regulations governing these are simplified and made more consumer-friendly. Instances of MIs selling of financial products to households needs to be tackled by overhauling the regulatory framework. Disclosure requirements for insurance and pension products need to be strengthened to make it easier for consumers to understand them. Simplification and relaxation of insurance sector regulations, substantial simplification of broker regulations can be made. Further, restrictions on payment of incentives and bonuses to agents in insurance can be removed. KYC restrictions in the capital markets can be eased and linked to other KYC information to enable ease of doing business and increase the participation of retail investors. The lock-in period for gold bonds should be reduced to make them more attractive. 9. Housing for all. Objectives. Provide every family with a Pakka house with a water connection, toilet facilities, and 24/7 electricity supply and access. Build 2.95 crore housing units in rural areas and 1.2 crore housing units in urban areas. Current situation. The President's clarion call to ensure the provision of houses to every family remains the key objective of the Housing for All scheme. Following this announcement, the government has made it clear that one of its key priorities is to ensure safe and affordable housing for all. This mandate also includes upgradation of slums. Recent estimates of the Ministry of Rural Development and Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs indicate a housing shortage of nearly 3 crore units in rural areas and 1.2 crore units in urban areas. Achieving the goal of housing for all will be a big step in the realization of New India Vision 2022 that will trigger economic growth and create millions of jobs for skilled as well as unskilled workers. Moreover, given the forward and backward linkages of the housing sector, the focus on affordable housing could bring rich dividends for other distressed sectors such as steel and cement. Since 1985, the Government of India has been implementing a rural housing scheme for families living below the poverty line, BPL. A new scheme, the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, Grameen, PMAYG, was launched in 2016. This scheme now provides per unit assistance of 1 Indian rupee 20,000 in plain areas and 1 Indian rupee 30,000 in hilly states, integrated action plan districts, difficult areas. This support is provided to homeless families or to those who live in kacha houses as per the Socio-Economic Caste Census (SECC) 2011 data. PMAYG is converged with Swachh Bharat Mission, Grameen and Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme (MGNREGS) for the construction of sanitary toilets and also to provide the unskilled wage component. Under PMAYG, it was proposed to build 1 crore rural houses in 3 years between 2016-17 and 2018-19. The estimated financial requirement for the construction of 1 crore houses in these 3 years is 81,975 crore Indian rupees. During 2016-17, about 32.14 lakh houses were constructed. For the financial year 2017-18, the government set a target of completing 51 lakh houses, 51.38 lakh houses had been sanctioned and 44.54 lakh houses, i.e. 87.29% of the target, had been completed by the end of March 2018. Under the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Urban PMAYU, the mission aims to achieve the objective of housing for all by 2022 through its 4 pillars: A. In situ slum redevelopment, B. Affordable housing through a credit-linked subsidy scheme, C. Affordable housing in partnership between public and private agencies, and D. Subsidy for beneficiary individual house construction or enhancement. For financial year 2017-18, the PMAY Urban targeted the sanctioning of 25 lakh houses and completing the construction of at least half the sanctioned strength. Against the mission target of 1.2 crore, 44.36 lakh houses have been sanctioned and 4.01 lakh houses had been completed by the end of March 2018. Constraints. The Housing for All scheme faces the following key constraints: lack of access to finance from formal financial institutions, long drawn-out multi-level approval system in urban areas in a large majority of municipal jurisdictions. For several categories of houses or those in particular locations, these delays are common even where a single window system has reportedly been introduced. Limited private sector participation in affordable housing schemes in urban areas. Predominance of conventional construction practices that result in delayed progress in urban areas and the limited use of prefabricated and pre-engineered materials. Limited access to suitable land banks for affordable housing projects. Continued rise in the number of slum dwellers. Insufficient number of trained masons despite the operation of the Construction Sector Skills Development Council since 2013. Capacity constraints in urban local bodies, ULBs, to formulate and design mass housing projects. Way forward. The strategies to overcome the constraints on affordable housing can be grouped into the following categories: 1. Access to finance, 2. Technology for construction, 3. Reducing costs, and 4. Efficient use of land. 1. Access to finance. To ensure greater access for the poor to institutional finance, the Department of Financial Services should consider a subcategory under Priority Sector Lending (PSL) for affordable houses. It should also consider relaxing eligibility conditions for bank loans, such as raising the cap of 10 lakh Indian rupees on the cost of the house and raising the 2 Indian rupees lakh income threshold. The government should continue to raise funds commensurate with the Housing for All targets. The Union Budget 2018-19 announced the setting up of an affordable housing fund in the National Housing Bank (NHB). It would achieve greater synergies among agencies that are implementing government housing schemes. It would also enable the NHB to mobilize larger funds for housing projects. The budget for 2018-19 has already announced increased allocations for PMAY Grameen to 33,000 crore Indian rupees and to 25,000 crore Indian rupees for PMAY Urban through internal and extra budgetary resources. 2. Technology for construction. 16 new emerging technologies have been identified, evaluated and promoted under PMAY-U. These fall under formwork systems 3, precast sandwich panel systems 6, light gauge steel structural systems 2, steel structural systems 2, and precast concrete construction systems 3. These alternate and sustainable technologies offer safer and disaster-resilient affordable housing. These will also improve the quality of construction in a cost-effective and environment-friendly manner across states, regions, and achieve economies of scale in urban areas. A global housing technology challenge has been launched. It will bring internationally proven construction technologies for adoption in India, enabling us to learn from the best practices from similar economies around the world. The success of the East Kidwai Nagar redevelopment project in Delhi may be replicated wherever possible. The key feature is the replacement of old-style public housing that suffered from grossly inefficient use of land with a modern, space-optimizing housing design. It is necessary to ensure convergence of provisions under the National Urban Livelihood Mission, Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, Construction Skill Development Council of India and MGNREGS, for rural areas, for large-scale training of masons to meet construction targets. There is need for a major push in the form of slum development programs in urban areas. A national mission for slum rehabilitation will bring a greater focus on making the country slum-free. 3. Reducing costs. Government projects should focus on the life cycle cost (LCC) approach to the construction of houses rather than the cost per square foot approach to ensure quality of construction and reduce expenditure incurred on the maintenance of houses. Fiscal support should be provided to companies that use recycled products made from waste. The use of such products should be standardized and adapted to shortlisted design types and prefabricated technologies. Regulatory complexities should be rationalized and a single window approval system adopted to reduce the time taken to construct houses in urban areas. The timeline for granting approvals should be specified, and if approvals are not accorded within the stipulated time period, it should be treated as deemed approval. Financial engineering, like rental cum ownership housing, in which houses are initially offered on rent and ownership is transferred to the tenant once the cost of the unit is recovered, should be adopted. 4. Efficient use of land. The land lying idle with various sick, loss-making public sector undertakings, PSUs, of the central, state governments may be used to resolve the issue of land availability for affordable housing projects under Housing for All. The Department of Public Enterprises (DPE) should expedite release of land parcels available with central PSUs that have been identified for affordable housing projects. As suggested in the NITI Aayog's 3-year action agenda, Indian cities have focused on horizontal growth for far too long. It should now focus on vertical growth. The following measures can be taken to accelerate vertical growth. Launch a mass campaign to sensitize cities and states on the benefits of vertical growth. Provide capacity building to states and cities willing to undertake measures towards vertical growth. Provide considerable rewards to cities that relax their Floor Space Index (FSI) norms. One of the key reasons behind India's horizontal sprawl is stringent FSI norms. The discussion on changing FSI norms considering trunk infrastructure and other social issues needs to be expedited across India. Provide additional central government funding to cities that undertake FSI reforms under the Smart Cities mission. In addition to the measures outlined above, urban governance reforms, such as removing the need to obtain permission for non-agricultural use in the case of land that has been earmarked for residential purposes in master plans, amending rental laws and others, have the potential to alleviate the challenges to achieving the goal of housing for all by 2022-23. 10. Travel, tourism and hospitality. Objectives. Increase India's share in global international tourist arrivals from 1.18% to 3%. Increase the number of foreign tourist arrivals from 8.8 million to 12 million. Double the number of domestic tourist visits, from 1,614 million in 2016 to 3,200 million visits. Current situation: there has been significant progress in the travel, tourism and hospitality sector in the last decade, but there is much further room for improvement. India moved up 12 places from 52nd to 40th in the World Economic Forum's Travel and Tourism Competitiveness Index in 2017. Foreign tourist arrivals have increased from 5.1 million in 2009 to 8.8 million in 2016, yet they account for less than 1% of global tourist arrivals. With 35 World Heritage Sites, 10 biogeographical zones and 26 biotic provinces, India has significant potential to increase the number of tourist arrivals. The sector is an important contributor to national income. In 2017-18, India's travel and tourism sector accounted for foreign exchange earnings of $22.92 billion United States dollars. Hotels and tourism also accounted for $0.9 billion United States dollars of foreign direct investment (FDI) in 2016-17, making up around 3% of total FDI between April 2000 and October 2017. Domestic tourism plays a key role within the sector. In 2016, domestic tourist visits to all Indian states and union territories numbered 16-14 million, an increase of about 13% from the previous year. As a highly labor-intensive sector, tourism has the capacity to generate large-scale, good-quality employment. In 2016, it accounted for 25 million direct and more than 14 million indirect jobs. Direct jobs in the sector made up 5.8% of India's total employment. Together, direct and indirect jobs accounted for 9.3% of total employment. The sector has multiple forward and backward linkages with further job-generating potential in sectors such as agriculture, retail, transport and financial services. Recognizing the sector's potential to generate income and employment, the government has undertaken several measures to strengthen infrastructure and facilitate tourism. India recently introduced Tourist Visa on arrival, enabled with Electronic Travel Authorization (ETA), renamed as A Tourist Visa, for tourists from 150 countries. The Ministry of Tourism has launched a round-the-clock toll-free tourist helpline in 12 international languages. The government has launched several schemes to develop tourist circuits, develop our islands as tourist destinations, build large-scale convention centers in different cities, improve connectivity and develop niche offerings such as medical tourism and pilgrimage-based tourism. Constraints. Entry, exit. Despite the introduction of an e-visa facility, visitors find the process of applying for a visa still cumbersome. Further, awareness about the e-visa facility remains low. In addition, medical e-visa holders face difficulties because of the limited number of repeat visits allowed under the visa, the number of accompanying persons permitted and cumbersome registration processes. Infrastructure and connectivity. Deficiencies in infrastructure and inadequate connectivity hamper tourist visits to some heritage sites. Tourism segments or circuits. India has various tourist destinations but few circuits or segments such as the Golden Triangle, Delhi, Agra, Jaipur. Promotion and marketing. Although it has been increasing, online marketing, branding remains limited and campaigns are not coordinated. Tourist information centers are poorly managed, making it difficult for domestic and foreign tourists to access information with ease. Skills. The number of adequately trained individuals for the tourism and hospitality sector is a key challenge to giving visitors a world-class experience. A limited number of multilingual trained guides, and the limited local awareness and understanding of the benefits and responsibilities associated with tourist growth act as constraints on the sector's growth. Way forward. 1. Entry/exit for tourism. Increase e-visa awareness globally by launching an information campaign through our consulates abroad. It is also necessary to launch an e-visa regime to attract clientele from the meetings, incentives, conferences and exhibitions, MICE market. To attract repeat visitors, the validity period of e-visas may be increased to 10 years. Enhance the number of annual visits allowed under an A-medical visa. Currently, A-medical visa holders are allowed 3 repeat visits during their 1-year visa period. This may not be sufficient for patients who require follow-up, post-operative care. Simplify the process of registering online with the Foreigner Regional Registration Offices (FRRO). Establishing FRRO help desks at major Indian airports and hospitals will provide visitors with the information to complete the process online. Increase the number of accompanying persons with a medical visa holders from 2 to up to 4 under the same visa, as has been done in countries like Malaysia. 2. Infrastructure and connectivity. Tourism infrastructure projects, viz., hotels, resorts, equipment, parks etc., having a project cost more than 1 crore Indian rupees should be notified as infrastructure, to enable promoters to avail loans on a priority basis. Conservation and development of all heritage sites should be undertaken and completed through either government funding or through NGOs, corporate social responsibility, CSR activities. The Ministry of Tourism's Swadesh Darshan and National Mission on Pilgrimage Rejuvenation and Spiritual Heritage Augmentation Drive Prashad schemes are already undertaking the development or maintenance of heritage sites. The number of projects sanctioned under this scheme should be increased and their implementation accelerated. Increase domestic tourist traffic by upgrading existing infrastructure and leasing out the maintenance of such infrastructure to private players. New destinations can be developed around the metros using the PPP model. Improve flight connectivity to tourist destinations through the timely implementation of the Ministry of Civil Aviation's Regional Connectivity Scheme, UDAN, RCS UDAN. Larger cities like Delhi, Mumbai, Kolkata and Chennai should be converted into efficient and seamless transit hubs. 3. Building tourist circuits or segments. Develop the marine leisure industry by issuing national boating guidelines to regulate the industry in terms of safety, security, marina development, nautical infrastructure for safe access to water, cruising and charters, crewing, skill training, rescue and rationalization of import duties and local taxes to encourage the growth of local boat building. This segment will also help attract additional FDI into the sector. Promote river cruise tourism by making the entire stretch of National Waterway No. 1, the River Ganga, from Allahabad to the Farakka barrage, fully navigable. Build deep water marinas in the coastal areas of India including in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands and in Mumbai. Create enabling policies that permit scuba diving or other activities requiring boat travel. Promote India's Buddhist circuit by increasing coordination among all stakeholders and improving connectivity. Tourism to the Buddhist circuit can be greatly enhanced by increasing promotion, building bayside amenities and connecting lesser-known sites to core circuits. We should also fully utilize the Swadesh Darshan and existing schemes to promote this circuit. Develop 100 smart tourist destination sites, showcasing theme-based museums and heritage sites. Develop 100 model Swachh tourist destinations by undertaking a special cleanup initiative focused on 100 iconic heritage, spiritual and cultural places in the country. Develop at least 5 beach destinations as exclusive tourism zones. Develop at least 5 world-class museums drawing from world-class museums such as Bilbao or the Asian Civilization Museum in Singapore. Further ease the process of accepting gifts by museums in India. Plan and develop 5 globally competitive and world-class national circuits from entry to exit. 4. Skill development. Connect local communities to tourism by encouraging them to set up small enterprises to supply the tourism industry, accommodation, food and material. Employment opportunities can be expanded by ensuring that investors and operators in the organized sector are encouraged to hire staff locally. Local craftspersons, masons, carpenters and laborers should be engaged for heritage conservation and restoration activities to create jobs. Create a database of artisans based on the different craft forms they are associated with in the areas where they live. Upgrade the skills of existing workers such as taxi drivers, boat operators, guides, and restaurant and dhaba workers through state tourism departments in association with local tourism and hospitality institutes and industry. Expertise available with heritage hotels may also be used for skill development in the sector. Language competencies of tour guides should be improved through a bridge course conducted by the sector council all across the country. Support private sector institutes in tourism regulated by government to create the required talent pool. This can be done by expanding the number of private sector institutes or bodies recognized as implementing agencies for delivering the Ministry of Tourism's Hunar Se Rozgar Tak initiative to create employable skills. Create centers of excellence for leadership in the tourism sector as a fulcrum of professional education, research and advocacy to create managers and entrepreneurs in tourism. Additionally, ensure that tourism management and leadership is included as a distinct course in top management institutes in India. Enable access to markets for traditional handicrafts producers by linking them with global markets. The government should also encourage the export of tribal handicrafts. 5. Promotion and marketing, especially with respect to cultural sites. Launch targeted promotional campaigns in Asian countries such as China, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, and South Korea, using digital media including TV advertisements. Design policies using data on consumer usage to target marketing efforts and segments of the population. Reconsider differential pricing for heritage sites as the higher ticket price for non-Indians leads to losing out on a large segment of youth travelers. Consider establishing cultural centers in additional countries to spread Indian culture worldwide. Create an online portal of all heritage sites to increase awareness regarding these. Ticketing and access to monuments and museums. An online ticket distribution system for heritage sites and wildlife areas should be developed with time slots to visit. Buying tickets at reception centers should be streamlined to avoid long queues. Create common passes to visit multiple heritage sites. Provide foreign exchange counters at each tourist site. Tourist information centers should be operated by trained personnel and must have resources like maps, travel guides, etc. 11. Minerals. Objectives. Double the area explored from 10% of obvious geological potential (OGP) area to 20%. Accelerate the growth of the mining sector from 3% in 2017-18 to 14%, with an average growth of 8.5% during 2018-23. Increase the job contribution, direct, associated and indirect, from the current 10 million, 2 million in coal and major metals and 8 million in minor minerals, to 15 million in 2022-23. Current situation. India has huge mineral potential, as its prospective geology is broadly similar to that of Western Australia, especially in relation to iron ore, bauxite, coal, diamonds, and heavy mineral sand. India has identified 5.71 lakh SQ. km is the obvious geological potential (OGP) area, but only 10% of it has been explored and 1.5% is being mined. This is one of the reasons why India's imports of minerals, estimated at 3 Indian rupees, 73,662 crore, far outstripped, more than 7 times, the value of domestic production of minerals, excluding coal, atomic and fuel minerals, of 47,432 crore Indian rupees in the financial year 2016-17. India's share in the global production of metallic minerals, such as bauxite, chromite, iron ore and manganese ore is relatively high. India is ranked 4th to 6th among global producers. In industrial minerals, India is a large producer of zinc, aluminium and steel, ranking 5th and 3rd respectively. 6 major minerals producing states, viz. Odisha, Rajasthan, Andhra Pradesh, Chhattisgarh and Karnataka, account for nearly 2/3 of the value of minerals produced in the country. In addition to the above, India also has large potential to increase the production of minor minerals. It is estimated that their share in the value of production is about 26%. Even though minor minerals have a small share in value terms, their production is more labor intensive as compared to major minerals. Thus, they can be a source of large-scale employment generation. The sector has been affected by legalities. This has restricted the scope of mining operations and raised costs. In 2015, the government amended the Mines and Minerals Development and Regulation (MMDR) Act to mandate auctions for the allocation of exploration and mining rights for minerals under its purview. The results have been encouraging. Constraints. Shortcomings in the licensing regime, such as the separation of auction of prospecting licenses and provision of mining licenses, and the different auction methodologies across different sectors like coal, oil and minerals. Heavy cost of acquiring land. High incidence of taxes, royalties and levies in comparison to global standards, more than 65%. Inadequate infrastructure resulting in evacuation problems. Workforce productivity and skilling challenges because of the disconnect between training institutions and industry. Way forward. 1. To facilitate participation by private sector players in exploration, launch a mission, Explore in India, by revamping the minerals exploration and licensing policy. The policy should have the following features. For bulk or surfacial minerals, i.e., iron ore, bauxite, limestone etc., the provision of reservation of areas for exploration by state agencies should be utilized and such areas should be allocated through the auction route after the development of reserves. It is desirable for public sector units (PSUs) and private sector companies to have a level playing field with respect to mining concessions. An exclusive subset of rules to facilitate the exploration of rare earth minerals through private sector participation should be framed. Mining companies should be allowed the freedom to co-mine other minerals found in the same mining area. To promote this sector, we need to rationalize tax structures and facilitate investment, including FDI. This would help both export promotion and import substitution. 2. Single window and time-bound environment and forest clearances. While Parivesh has been launched on August 10, 2018 as a single window hub for environment, forest, wildlife and CRZ clearances, the Ministry of Environment and Forest (MoF) should declare upfront inviolate forest areas. This should specify whether underground mining or open cast mining can be done or not in these areas. All statutory approvals should mandatorily be granted within 180 days of application for exploration and mining of minerals. Further, a provision for the issue of deemed approval letters by a competent authority should be incorporated in cases where delay beyond the specified period has occurred. Local forest officers may be empowered to grant permission under the FC Act 1980 for exploration in forest areas. State PSUs in the private sector should also be allowed to undertake compensatory afforestation on degraded government forest land like central PSUs. 3. Boosting minor minerals through a relaxed licensing regime. Landowners, farmers, tribals need to be given mining rights for minor minerals on their land, to enable them to mine either on their own or by outsourcing it, without auction or payment of an additional 30% of the royalty to the DMF. If the landowner does not intend to undertake mining of minor minerals on her land, these mining leases can be allocated through the auction route. 4. Data repository, regulation and reporting. A national mineral regulatory authority, with subordinate state authorities, may be created to regulate the minerals sector to operate transparently with internationally recognized technical standards. A national data repository (NDR) of mineral resources should be created and uploaded online. Introduce a robust and transparent public reporting mechanism for exploration firms, which is compliant with the Joint Ore Resources Committee (JORC) code or an equivalent code in the statute. The huge mineral-bearing areas reserved for state agencies that have not been utilized for more than 2 years should be reserved and allocated to the end-user industry, auctioned. Instead of field inspections, a system of self-approval, self-certification with GIS-based monitoring should be adopted for enforcing the provisions of the MMDR Act. This should be accompanied with a provision for heavy monetary penalties for each violation. 5. Other measures. Immediate steps should be taken to reduce rail freight charges for all minerals that are available in India in abundance but are imported because it is currently uneconomical to transport them by rail. Rationalize taxation, royalty and other levies on mining, capping it at a maximum of 40% of the sale value, as per global practice, to make mining competitive globally. Mining engineering colleges should be developed as centers for mineral exploration. Encourage technological upgradation by reducing import duty, initially for a period of 5 to 10 years, on equipment, cutting-edge technology to boost safety, limit environmental damage, improve productivity and increase growth. To enhance the resource base and ensure mineral security, India should create an organization for strategic acquisitions of mines in other countries and to sign diplomatic and trade agreements. Promote zero-waste mining by incentivizing leaseholders to utilize and sell subgrade minerals, rejects. As per the provision of Section 8A(6) of MMDR Act 2015, the 50-year or more lease granted to 288 non-captive mines will end on March 31, 2020. To ensure smooth transition in 2020 and to avoid disruption in mineral supplies and job losses, the Ministry of Mines should complete the process of bidding for these mines 1 year before the date of expiry.